What is going on, everyone? I hope all of you are doing well. First and foremost, I apologize for the lack of videos. To be honest with you guys, I've just been focusing a lot on eBay. I'm trying to get back on my feet, hopefully by the end of the year, which probably is not going to happen. The way things are right now, I'm actually hitting my 2-year mark at the end of June, since everything that went down with my injury and pretty much all the drama I had to deal with. So yeah, that's kind of where my focus has been, but I am going to get back into the groove of things when it comes to videos. Not only that, I've been catching up a lot on YouTube, so I haven't been really watching a whole lot. I've kind of gotten behind on that as well, so I do apologize. Gonna try to get back into the groove of things real soon, so just bear with me. But I wanted to review a Rob Schneider film, one of my personal favorites. Now, everybody can have their mixed opinions on Rob Schneider. As an actor, I think he's great. As a human being, he's a total douche. From what I've heard, he is, a total douche. But I've always enjoyed the SNL stuff, and when he was doing his own thing back in like the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, I really enjoyed what he had. So I figured I would review one of those movies, and that is the film The Animal. The Animal. What can be said about this movie other than just being absolutely entertaining and funny? To give you guys a quick synopsis on the film, Rob Schneider plays a cop who gets into a terrible accident, and he ends up, getting these animal parts. He was basically on the verge of dying, and the only way to save him was put animal parts into him. And because of this, it starts to give him these animal instincts, ranging from, running really fast to having like really strong sense and hearing and things like that. And while that's all going on, we find out in the town that they're in, we have these, I wouldn't say crimes, but we have these cases that are happening where animals are being killed and they're not sure what's going on. That situation kind of leads into his character a little bit. And he's got his two friends that are kind of there and not there, in some way. They're kind of more the goofy side, the goofy type friends. And then he gets a lot of, BS from his boss, who is played by John C. McGinley, well known for playing Dr. Cox in Scrubs, who, for a lot of people that may not know, he did a lot of things way back in the day before he would go on to, do Scrubs. He's in one of the Highlander films. He is in pretty much a slew of things. A lot of times he plays a cop or a businessman or just anything, and he hasn't aged a day in his life. He still looks the same. And I can't wait to hopefully see him in the Scrub revival that apparently is in the works. But yeah, he is pretty much the supervisor, the boss for Rob Schneider's character, and Rob Schneider his character just kind of takes the crap. John C. McGinley, trying not to butcher his name, he is basically full of himself, over extremely confident and things like that. And I think a lot of moments are just really entertaining with him. He is playing Dr. Cox in this. That's basically what you see in Scrubs, is kind of the same character he's playing, but as a cop. Maybe not as much as he does in that, but yeah, it's pretty hilarious. There's a cool cameo in this. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but I highly recommend you check out the film. There is a love interest for him who I believe was part of a TV show, Survivor. what is her name? Colleen Haskell? Colleen Haskell, I believe is her name. And then you got Ed Asner, and yeah. Just a really entertaining film. It's not one I hear people talk about, and a lot of it's funny because if you look back at a lot of the 90s, like early to mid, maybe even late 90s and early to mid 2000s, maybe around like up until 2007, a lot of the cast members who were big on SNL, the SNL cast members in the 90s, Rob Schneider, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, David Spade, every year they were coming out with a hit. Maybe not a hit in the box office, but as it grew and those films grew a cult following, they became hits, and they to this day they're still fun and entertaining films. And every time you turn around, Sandler, Schneider, Farley, they were just coming out with a movie. It was like nonstop. I think they were coming out with more films than most actors were coming out with. I truly feel like that. And you kind of can see a decline. I think after Rob Schneider did Big Stan, that was kind of it. He'd go on to do like The Chosen One, which was an awful movie. And then most of the time he just shows back up in Sandler's films. But The Animal is definitely one that I would recommend you check out. It's a fun one. If you've seen it, then you know it's very entertaining. Excuse me, there's a lot of great moments that really stand out. Excuse me. One, that includes a mailbox. If you know, you know. That was kind of one of the scenes they constantly showed in the trailer. I remember, it's funny because a lot of films that came out in the early 2000s, I always remember the trailers because there was something that stood out for a lot of films compared to others. And this one always stood out because they always showed the dolphin scene and they always showed the horse mailbox scene. That those were the two scenes that, because they constantly showed them, they stood out for me because they were what made me really laugh my butt off when I would see the trailer. So yeah, wish I could say more about it. I think at this point you guys should at least give it a watch. It's looking back on it, it's still funny. At least in my opinion, I still find it to be entertaining and funny as it was when the first time I watched it. I miss the old days of releases especially when it comes to DVD, for multiple reasons. A lot of DVDs had features. We're getting to that point now where I feel like either all the features are not being transferred over due Let me take a sip of water. I feel like they're not being transferred over due to a bunch of rights issues because nobody wants to pay, which is ridiculous. So that's why you see movies constantly get re-released. Oh yeah, a great example I can use is People Under the Stairs and Idle Hands. Those Blu-rays came out. There was no features. They were bare bones. I think Universal released both of them. Scream Factory comes and puts features on there. Not only that, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my throat. All the features that were on the DVD for Idle Hands never got transferred over until we got the Scream Factory release. So it's like, really? So yeah, I miss the old days of the DVDs having tons of features. Now, don't mind you, there are DVDs that were bare bones, but a lot had features, and a lot of times they would put the features on a second disc. Sometimes you have one disc, others you have two, but you do get original making of featurette, you get deleted scenes, you get a Comedy Central reel comedy, you get theatrical trailers, you get filmographies on the actors, you get some commentary, so there's a decent amount, which I do like. There's the back, and then there is the disc. And the chapter scene selection insert. I wish Blu-rays got this. Make them the same size as the Blu-rays. Put, you know, a list of the features, maybe some facts on the film. I think it would be cool. It shouldn't have to be a collector's edition or a special box to have any of this stuff. I just think it's ridiculous. And you get a little info on the film. That one scene with him and the monkey, was it orangutan? That is absolutely funny. And what's also interesting is I don't know if I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. John C. McGinley right there was in shape, man. That man was buff. I don't know if he needed to do that for the part or what, but yeah, he was definitely hitting the gym for sure. And I think that kind of worked because of the type of character he was playing. I think it ended up working. You know, that muscular douchebag who's overconfident and, you know, thinks he's hot stuff. That's pretty much the character he's playing. But yeah, I wish I could say more. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to my review for The Animal. If you've seen the movie, let me know what your thoughts are. What is your favorite Rob Schneider film? Excuse me. And what is your favorite film that Rob Schneider has made an appearance? So for me, it's a lot of his early stuff. Big Stan, both Deuce Bigelow films, and Hot Chick is another one I like as well. And when it comes to him, you know, showing up in other films that, you know, are not necessarily where he's the main lead, I would have to say Big Daddy as the delivery guy. His character in that is absolutely funny. His character as the wedding priest, well, not wedding priest, the wedding official, whatever you want to call it, in I Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. He's absolutely hilarious in that. I'm sure if you try to make that movie again, it wouldn't work out so well. So I like that. His character in 50 First Dates is decent. It has its moments. But I feel like films like Big Daddy, you know, and a few other ones stand out, especially when he's like, you know, hippopotamus. Damn, you give him all the easy words. That cracks me up every time because he's basically getting outschooled by a kid. And you know, in that end of that scene, and yeah, there'll be spoilers when he gives Sonny the gift, and he goes, "I got you a clock radio," and he's like, "You're gonna stay long?" "No, I can't. I got deliveries." Hooter waitress walks by. Meh, maybe I'll stay a little longer. That I absolutely laughed my butt off. I wish they would have done a film on that character alone. And I think the character shows up in Mr. Deeds as well, which is cool. So yeah, you know, Rob Schneider's little cameos and appearances he has in films are great, and some of his early stuff is great as well. But one thing I've always been able to do is I'm able to, you know, kind of split the actor from the person. What I mean by this, Kevin Spacey. I know that's a person that deals with there's a lot of controversial things, but when there's films like K-Pax, which I think is a highly underrated movie, I don't hear people talk about that movie. The first time I watched that movie, I was absolutely amazed on how good that film was. And I'm not a big fan of the drama genre unless it has a really good story. American Beauty is another good one. So, you know, Kevin Spacey or Bill Cosby, you know, films like Ghost Dad and, you know, his small little appearance in Jack with Robin Williams. I really enjoy those movies. And that's why I'm able to separate the person and the art, basically. You know, I've always been able to do that. I think a lot of people need to learn to do that because there are people in those films that worked hard, and you shouldn't let one actor ruin a film regardless of who's in it, you know? Like the Jeepers Creepers movies. A lot of people like the first two films. The director's a POS, I will state that. But the films are good, and you're mainly watching it for, you know, the actors, you know, Justin Long everybody else that worked on it. Same with K-Pax. There's other well-known names in that film. So it's not just watching the film, you know, oh yeah, Kevin Spacey's in it. You're watching it for everybody else. And that's kind of how I've been able to separate a lot of, you know, the actors from their, you know, their POS douchebag type of self, which is ridiculous. That's what Hollywood does for you. Not a topic I want to get into, but like, it's the same with Rob Schneider. I like Rob Schneider the actor, Rob Schneider the person. He's a douche, which is crazy because he used to be one of my favorite SNL cast members. But the more you start to learn about him and what his daughter has said, like, what a tool, basically. But yeah, I don't want to get off topic, but thank you guys for tuning in. If you've seen The Animal, let me know what your thoughts are. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel on Film Talk with Mikey. Till next time, guys, we'll talk films. You guys have blah, blah, blah. Let's rewind that. You guys have a good one, and I will see you next time. Peace.